All right, and we're back, and I have a very special guest right now, none other than a real hero, and this story, when it happened, was amazing to me, and that's none other than Joe Lazito. Joe, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, and this week was the anniversary of what was a really heinous incident where you put your life on the line to save a lot of lives. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because my two hosts here, I have Taylor with me, my co-host, and my engineer Josh. They had no idea about this story until I brought it up this week, and they were both like in awe at your story. So why don't you dive in a little bit?
Really was.
Well, basically what happened was I was living in Philadelphia at the time, so the prior 28 hours of everything that happened, I wasn't aware of. People in New York were aware of it, but I wasn't. And apparently, this guy got into a disagreement with his stepfather, and he wanted the keys to the car, and the stepfather said no. So, I mean, we've all been in disagreements with our parents before, but I guess he took it a little extra step, and he grabbed a knife and stabbed his stepfather about 55 times.
Yeah, to the point where I think the knife broke, and he took a fork and started stabbing him too.
Yeah, something to that effect. Yeah, I mean, I guess he wasn't happy with it. So, I guess at that point he was all in, and the word that I got was, after the fact, was that at this point he decided he was going to take off. He had his passport, and he was ready to go, and he got a little bit ways out of Brooklyn, I guess, and decided to come back and settle some scores. So he headed to this girl's house, this woman Yelena, who apparently he was friendly with. I think he wanted more, and she wanted no part of him. And he decided he was going to take care of her, and she wasn't there. So in her substituting her, he killed her mother.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Then hours went by, and Yelena started getting calls and texts about Max being seen, I guess, around her house, and she was worried about her mother. So she came home, found her mother dead, and then this guy showed up again, and he basically stabbed her to death, almost decapitating her.
Oh my goodness!
Christ.
Somewhere during this period, he had been carjacking people, and one of the cars he had carjacked, he ended up running a guy over, and the guy went head over heels, ended up killing him. So this, in a 28-hour span, he killed 4 people. He injured, I think, 3 others. And here I am in Philadelphia, just living my life, whatever. And
yeah, right.
I have no idea this is going on. So it's a Saturday morning. I get up, and I'm going to my job in New York. Just get on my trains and get to Penn Station, and now I got to take the subway. And I get on the subway, and we're not moving at all. We're sitting there, and I don't know what's going on. And next thing I know, these 2 police officers get on the subway. And normally when I've been on the train with these guys, they stay in the car with the people. But for whatever reason that day, they go in with the engineer. So I thought that was a little weird, but it's a Saturday morning. Who knows? Maybe they don't want to be bothered with the Friday night leftovers. I don't know. But so finally we start moving, but we're moving very slowly. So I'm going, okay, whatever. Next thing I know, this guy just comes up, and he starts banging on the door to the engineer, and he says, let me in. And the cops on the other side of the door says, who are you? This guy says, I'm the police. And the cop says, you're not the police. And with that, the guy just turns around and walks away. Now, the guy looked dirty. He looked like he was out all night.
Could just be a crazy homeless person.
Right.
Yeah, it could have been anything. I mean, it could have just been a guy that was out, and it was early Saturday morning, so...
Could be anything.
So I'm like, whatever, But now the strangest thing happened. Now that guy walks away, and another guy who was actually standing right next to me just goes up to the door and starts, really, anxiously, tapping on the window, but trying to do it where the first guy doesn't necessarily notice, and he looks scared to death, and he's trying to get the cops to come out. He's waving, tapping and waving and tapping and waving and looking over his shoulder at the guy that was just up there. So now, and this is all happening right in front of me, and I'm going, what the hell is going on here? So
you're aware something is wrong at this point. Like, you're picking up that something's off.
Yeah, something's definitely going on. So the first guy that was up there, he starts to walk back up, and then this guy, the second guy at the door, he hightails it back next to me. So this first guy starts starts walking up to the door. He's about 3 feet from the door. He's about 2 feet from me. He looks down at me. I look up at him. He just looks at me and he says, "You're going to die. You're going to die." He reaches into his jacket. He takes out this 8-inch knife and plunges it right into my face.
Oh, my God.
So I'm sitting here going, all right, well, we got to do something here. So I never trained in any sort of fighting, martial art, or anything like that. But, you know, I've watched it forever, and I like football, and I'm thinking, all right, this guy has a knife. I got to try to get him down. I don't want him on top of me. So I went in for a single leg, something I've never trained to do, but I figured let's go for the legs and let's get him down. And I shot in a little too high, and I ended up wrapping myself around his waist. So I got him down. It was more like a football tackle, but while I was doing so, he had free rein at the back of my head. And
Jesus.
So he did a number on the side of my head and the back of my head, you know, while I was taking him down. But I did get him down, and I had, you know, dominant position on him. So I'm on top of him, but he still has the knife in his hands. Now I'm trying to secure his wrist, and he's right-handed, as am I, so I'm trying to get his right hand with my left hand, which is the easiest thing, and he's flailing the knife up at me. So he flails it up a couple of times, and I miss, and one time he slices me in the thumb, like that wet part of your thumb that connects the thumb to your hand. And the second time he slices it in, he slices me in the tricep. And then finally, the third time I grabbed his wrist, I slammed it, excuse me, I slammed it down, and the knife came out. And then the cops came out of the engineer's booth and tapped me on the shoulder and said that I could get up now that they got him. So
that they got him.
Oh, yeah, great.
So basically, you know, I took care of the dirty work, and then they came in and attempted to get the glory. I guess they saw all the blood that was coming out of me and figured that I would just be his fifth murder victim, so I would die there, and so would the truth. But
wait, what?
it actually, the reality is, and I say this to people all the time, it actually, and that was a pretty quick version of the story, but it takes me longer to tell the story than the actual incident.
Wow, that's I mean, I can't imagine the adrenaline. Like, how many stitches and staples did you have to end up getting total? Because we're looking at the pictures right now, and I met you after, I believe it was UFC 128, when Jones fought Shogun. I know Dana gave you the whole hookup and everything, and that was, you know, shortly after all this happened, so you were all pretty scarred up at the time. Yeah. So what was the total amount of stitches and staples you had to get?
You know, I really regret not asking how many total it was. What I can tell you is the one cut that's on the back of my head that looks like it goes to the like base of my neck.
Yeah, the brainstem, kind of.
Yeah, that one was, I believe, 22 and 20. It was either 22 staples, 20 stitches, or vice versa. I don't know, but that was just that one alone. I mean, he cut me 7 places. 6 places I got stitches and or staples. One place was on my knuckle. It would have got probably 3 stitches, but I told him not to bother with that one. So I would say I'm probably looking at, you know, quick number in my head, probably looking at maybe, you know, 50, 60 staples, maybe 80, 90 stitches. I don't know actually, so it's just a guess, but he got me pretty good.
Yeah,
I'll give him that.
I mean, and I read like a lot of the stuff when it happened, and you were just kind of in shock, and then you realized how much blood was pouring out because there's so much adrenaline. I'm sure the pain isn't fully registering at that point.
It's weird to say this. There was no pain at all.
Probably so much adrenaline running.
At one point, I pass out. Before that, though, the whole thing's happening, and yeah, I feel pressure. Like when I'm taking him down and he's stabbing me in the head, like I feel the pressure, and I hear him grunting, and I feel the pressure, but I don't feel any. It doesn't hurt. Okay,
yeah.
And
you feel weak and lightheaded, kind of, because you're losing blood, but no actual pain.
Yeah, once the incident is done, and I'm sitting on the seat, and I'm just, you know, like I'm kind of hunched over, and I'm like the blood is just coming out of both sides of my neck now, and it's just flowing in front of me.
Wow.
Still no pain though, but severe panic because I'm thinking
you're losing a lot of blood.
Right.
I'm losing a lot of blood. I'm going to die here. So now I'm freaking out, but still no pain, and I actually didn't feel any pain until, you know, thankfully finally, once the police realized, oh, their officers were okay, forget about the guy that's bleeding to death.
Exactly, the civilian that actually saved the day.
Once, 25 minutes later, once we were finally able to move the train out of the tunnel to 42nd Street, once the paramedics got on, and they lifted me off the seat and onto the stretcher, that's when I passed out, and then I snapped right out of it. But when I woke up, that's when I felt the pain. And that pain, I can't describe it. The best analogy that I can use is dousing my head in gasoline and lighting it on fire.
Wow. So just a constant burning sensation, kind of.
It was like it was so intense. I can't describe it. Like, and that's the thing. I always qualify when I go, well, when it was happening, I didn't feel any pain because I'm not the Hulk. But yeah. I always say, as much pain as I didn't feel while it was happening, it was tenfold when I snapped out of it because the pain was just intense. And I mean, I thought my head was going to just explode.
Well, I mean, and at the end of the day, who knows how many lives you ultimately saved, including your own, obviously.
Right.
And it's really unfortunate that it's gone unrecognized by the NYPD as they covered up for the people that were supposed to be protecting you because they didn't have an obligation to protect you but had to protect themselves, more or less, is what they said.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I'm never quite comfortable with those kind of accolades because I just feel like I was just put in that position, and I just think anyone
did what you had to do.
You know, someone else would have done the same thing. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, but you know,
I like to think I would do the same, but I don't know in the moment. You know, you had it was fight or flight kind of thing. You know what I mean? And fight, flight, or die. And you really put yourself on the line after this guy. I mean, I can't imagine what was going through your head when he said you're gonna die today. That's got to be, and I'm sure he had the look like of a guy that was just ready to do whatever.
It's weird, you know. I have a reason to fight. You know, I have a wife I love, and I have 2 sons. And
that's all you see in that moment, I'm sure. You just picture your family.
You know, they're why I go to work every day, and they're why I do everything I do. And so that was easy. Those were my reasons to fight. And I wasn't. Look, I mean, I had no idea what he had done the prior 28 hours.
You just saw a psychopath coming at you, and who knows what he had done. But was the knife that he lunged at with you, was it blood-stained at that point?
Yes, and I tell people that when I tell the story, you know, it happened very quickly, but when he first took the knife out, I did see what I thought was just like general filth. It was dirty. I didn't know what it was until I found out that that was actually the knife he had used to kill the people. So it was everybody's blood on there. It was kind of disgusting, but
not sanitary.
No,
not at all. Not at all. But
if you're gonna stab me, use a clean knife.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, look. I mean, here's the thing. I have my family, and they're my world. So if anyone wants to try to kill me, they're gonna have to take everything I have because I'm not ready to leave my kids without a father and leave my wife a widow. So. I'm nobody special, but I have 3 reasons to fight.
You might not be anybody special, but you were certainly special that day, and you did something special. And it was crazy because, like I said, I remember when this happened because it was. I'm a huge MMA fan. I've been to multiple events. I've met everyone. I met you at one of these things. You were on every MMA website after this. You were on. You weren't even on MMA websites. You were on ABC, NBC. That man uses MMA tactics to stop a killer or stop killing spree. And you said straight up, I've just been watching a long time, and that's how I know a real fan that can pick up on the tiny techniques. You said it, single leg.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
It came into that moment where you got to think like, what is the safest route or the most effective route I can go here? And you know, it was cool to see that Dana White took care of you after, and he hooked you up with some tickets. And I'm sure, I don't know if you still have contact with him or anything, but you really ended up everywhere, and a lot of the fighters recognized you as well. So while you may not like the accolades, it's really cool as a outsider looking at this, that someone that did something amazing, if the people that should be recognizing him aren't, that others will.
It was really the whole MMA community was unreal, and I didn't even know how to react, to be honest, because it was just crazy. If I can indulge you in this story,
sure, please.
The Monday after was the day that I did the majority of the interviews. That was Good Morning America, and I did a lot of interviews that day. And we had to go to the city to do that. So even though I was living in Philadelphia, my family is on Long Island. So once I got out of the hospital, I just went and stayed at my mom's, and I was going to stay there for the week because I had to go to court to testify before the grand jury. So I pretty much knew that from the day I got out of the hospital, which was the next day, believe it or not, until maybe later in the week I'd be there. So Good Morning America had contacted me and asked me if I'd come on, and I said yes. Obviously, I was going to the city that day, and they were great. They sent the car for us and everything. And then other news agencies had contacted me, and I said, look, I'm really tired. This is really all new. If you want to talk to me and you can make it, Times Square, I'll do all the interviews you want. Like, I was like,
yeah.
I know you guys have a job to do. When it was over and we're in the car on the way home, I turned to my wife and I'm like, it just really took a lot out of me. Like, I just want to go home and lie down.
I can imagine, because you're being kind of forced to revisit all this like incredible traumatic experience right after it happened. Like, it's years later now, and I'm sure it's still traumatic, but at the time it's like you're just pouring a little salt on the wound and opening it again, emotionally.
Yeah, and physically too, Like I said, it was really 48 hours after, so I was just physically exhausted as well. So I said, look, when we get back, I'm just going to give you my phone, and I'll let you handle it. And if anyone wants to talk to me, we could do it later in the day, maybe on the phone or whatever. And, that's it. So we get back, and we're just sitting there, and she goes upstairs. I'm just kind of relaxing on the sofa for a bit, and I get a text from a number I don't know, and it ends up being Channel 5 here in New York. And,
okay.
Which I think you guys get over there.
Yeah, we're in North Jersey, so we get all the same stuff.
Close, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you get the fine. It's just, I get a text, and I had told my wife, I said, look, I'm not going back to the city today. I'm good. We'll do anything on the phone. And I get a text from Channel 5, and they say, so-and-so from Channel 5, whatever, and Dana White wants to meet you.
Wow.
So I go, so I'm like, I did like the whole thing with my eyes, like, did I just read this right? Like, what? So,
like, you sure you got the right guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, what? How does, geez. So I go, okay, so I call back, and so they go, yeah, Dana heard about your story, and all the media kind of went crazy with the whole UFC thing, because, like I said, I said, it's funny because I had said, I went in for a single leg, and one of the reporters turned that into a leg sweep, which was turned into a leg swipe, and I'm
to a judo toss,
yeah,
to a German suplex.
Yeah, so I'm going, all right. Whatever.
Next thing you know, you have him in full guard, and you get him in an omoplata.
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, all right. So I called the guy back, and I'm like, are you really, like, how is he going to meet me? He's in Vegas. Like, I assumed he's in Vegas,
Yeah.
So he goes, actually, he's going to be in New York. He wants to meet you tonight. And I was like, and this was Valentine's Day, so this was 2 days later.
Yeah.
So I go, he just goes, look, all I need to know is if you're into it, and I'll get you details in a little while. I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. No problem. So my sons were there, and I go, hey, go upstairs and get Mom. And so she comes downstairs. I go, remember when I said we're not going back to the city today?
Yeah. Whoops.
I go, we're going back tonight. And she goes, what? And I go, read this. And I held up my phone, and she's like, get the hell out of here. So when we got there, it was amazing. And I said to him, I said two things to him that to me stand out. And one of them was this. And I said, how did you even hear about this, right? And he goes, well, what happened was we were in a meeting, and at a certain point in the meeting, everybody in the meeting's phone starts to blow up, because now this has become a story.
It went viral. It went viral really fast.
It went viral, and not only did the story go viral, the UFC angle of it went viral. So now everybody that knows anybody that works for the UFC, hey, did you hear about this guy, and blah, 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 and now it's everyone's phone is going crazy, where he said they had to actually stop the meeting and find out what this was about.
Wow.
And
you stopped Dana White in his tracks. That's saying a lot. Most fighters can't do that.
Nope.
Yeah. So I was like, holy shit, I can't believe that. I was going to write that I cursed. I'm sorry about that.
No, dude, listen.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine.
That was like the cleanest word we've used this whole episode.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. I usually have a terrible cursing thing, but I just want to make sure. Sorry about that.
Of course, no worries.
So I'm like, he goes, yeah, and it was just a coincidence that he was going to be in New York for meetings that night. So when he heard about it, a guy who I'm still in contact with named Jim Byrne, he was kind of like Mr. Everything for them, like a media liaison.
Yeah.
He's based out of New York, so he called me and he's like, "Look, Dana wants to meet you. Blah blah blah. We're going to do this at this hotel." And I'm like, "No problem." And when we got there, I mean, it was, look, I've loved the sport and I've loved the organization, even since day one. I mean, I'm old enough to have enjoyed it since day one. And, Dana and the Fertittas at the time, and they've done so much for him, and Dana's a lightning rod for people. They love him or they hate him, and I've always been a big fan. And when you have someone like that wants to acknowledge anything you've done, it was a real honor for me.
Yeah,
so,
and that's the thing with Dana. Like, as a hardcore fan, I don't always like the way he is with fighters, but most fans, and I've met him a couple times, he's great with fans, and in these situations, he's great. We could say whatever he wants about the fighters, but we have to understand he's a promoter. At the end of the day, it's a cutthroat industry. But that must have been, if anything positive came from this, as a longtime fan, you got that kind of experience.
Well, it was great, and you know what? Like, you see him on TV and you hear his interviews and everything, and he almost at times seems larger than life. But at that moment, he was very humble. He was just a regular guy, and I tell people he made me feel so comfortable that I was actually able to give him a little shit also, because my favorite fighter, my all-time favorite fighter is Keith Jardine. He's my guy, and I love him. And
the Dean of Me.
He had just been released.
Yeah, and he went to Strike Force.
Just let him go. Yeah, so they had just let him go, and actually this was before Strike Force, so he was free agent at the time.
That's right.
And I said to Dana, I'm like, "Look," I said, I really appreciate everything you're doing for me, but I want to give you a little shit here. And he starts laughing. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "He just released my favorite fighter." And he goes, "Who?" And I said, "Keith Jardine." And he goes, "Oh," he goes, "Look, I love Keith." He goes, "It's just a business decision, and hopefully, he'll have a few fights and he'll work his way back." But I like the look in his face. I think he thought it was cool that I was giving him a little shit about it. Like,
probably,
thought that, so
he didn't call you a bozo or a clown or anything about it. That's his Twitter acumen. Now, I don't know if it's cool with Keith, because I get excited when I see fighters that after their careers are more or less done. He's in like movies and TV now. He was just on the second season of The Punisher in a brutal scene. So that's really cool. I've met Keith before. Really, really nice guy. We actually just saw a couple pictures of you and Keith. But I think my co-host Taylor had a question for you. So.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, listen, Joe, I just wanted to say wholeheartedly, like, just listening to your story, and the first time I've even heard of this was just this week, and hearing you talk about it, and like the accolades you were given, the one thing I actually just really want to point out that I noticed, and I'm very blown away by, was you staying humble,
your humility
throughout the entire process, because it's very easy when something like that happens and you get all the national attention that you got, for it to kind of go to people's head, and for you to stay level-headed throughout the entire process.
And especially in today's world where everyone is looking to get their 15 minutes.
Exactly.
You kind of were hesitant to take your 15 minutes.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to say how inspiring that is. You know what I mean? Like, you're just a normal guy who did what he had to do. And
to be with his family, and to make sure that your kids had a parent there, and your wife had a husband with her,
and to overcome the adversity that you did. Like I said, it is such an inspiring story, and it's such an honor to speak to you today. It truthfully is. And I guess the only question would be, who do you got tonight in the fight?
Yeah, who are you taking, Kane or Ngannou?
All right, so first, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that's just me. That's the only way I know, I mean, I'm just...
and that's what makes it great, honestly.
Yeah, I'm just a guy. Like, I'm just a guy. I go to work every day. I'm just a blue-collar guy. I work hard. I pay my taxes. I support my family. That's it. It was just it's a moment in my life, and it's the highest profile moment in my life. But at the end of the day, it's just a moment, and
it doesn't define you.
Right? It doesn't define you.
I'm fortunate enough to be here and spend time with my family.
Absolutely.
And, I did get some notoriety from it, and that's fine. And listen, I've met some amazing people because of it, and everyone that's ever reached out to me, I appreciate that. But it's not going to change who I am.
Absolutely not.
It's just who I am, and I'd much rather be remembered as a good husband and a father than the guy that stopped this idiot.
And that's what makes you you special. I know you don't always like hearing that, but that makes you special. That you realize that it wasn't about what you were seeing your family at that moment, and that's an amazing thing to be able to put that in your mind in that excruciatingly horrifying moment.
So you guys want to know who I?
I need to know.
Tonight?
Cain Velasquez or Francis Ngannou?
I need to know.
Well, if you want to know who I'm picking in the big fight tonight, the answer is simple: Jody Escobar. That is the person I'm picking in the fight that I care most about today. Is Jody. So I'm going with Jody, Team Butter all the way. She's my buddy, and I'm going for her. But as far as the other fight, I'm going to go with Ngannou.
Yeah,
it's hard not to.
I think it's so hard to know where Cain Velasquez is at physically, because if we're talking Cain's prime, I think it's easily him. But he hasn't fought since UFC 200 against Travis Brown. He's had a ton of injuries, a ton of surgeries, and that makes guys age quicker. He's like an old, I think he's 32 or 34. He's an old 32 to 34. So
the tough thing is if they were in a line of work where it wasn't physical, where if this was like engineering, where you being injured, you could still work your brain, then I would probably take Cain in this fight. But like you say, I mean, it's obviously a physical sport, and he's been on the shelf so long.
And I love Cain. I love Cain, but
he's an easy guy to root for.
Yeah, for sure.
And if he pulls it out tonight, would anyone be surprised?
No, not at all.
No, I mean, you'd be surprised because of the layoff, but not because of his ability. But
because the ability is without question. Cardio is without question.
I was going to say he had a pretty significant back injury, right?
He's had multiple significant back injuries.
I was going to say, and usually when your back goes, it goes, and that's it. So, that's the one thing that would bum me out the most. Obviously, I want Cain to win tonight, but I think the right pick is Ngannou.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you one last question, then we'll let you go, and it's a question we have for all our guests, because our show is based in movies and music. So the first question is, what's your favorite movie of all time? Seven. Great choice. All right, and it is hard to pick a favorite album, so if you can't come up with a favorite album. Favorite band, artist. Okay, what's your favorite album?
Favorite band, Alice in Chains. Favorite album, Dirt.
That's a great choice. Our engineer here, Josh, and I were just on an Alice in Chains kick recently. Yeah. So that's killer. So, Joe, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
and
man,
again,
thank you.
It really was an honor to talk to you, and I hope to talk to you more in the future.
Anytime, boys. Just hit me up. We'll chat about whatever you want.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Joe. We'll talk soon,
all
right?
Joe, thank you so much, pal.
All right. Have a good one. Wow, what a story. That's pretty amazing.
I'm very blown away.
Yeah,
and it's not like I didn't want to ask questions. It's like I was so enthralled with the story. I just wanted to I need to hear this. You know what I mean?
And you don't you guys, I said, I told you guys about the story earlier in the week, and Josh was watching Hereditary for the first time. He's like, yo, I just had to pause this. How have I never heard about this shit?
Right, you would think it's right in our backyard.
To hear
and it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't.
Not like it's early 2000s, mid 2000s, where we were younger, we were in high school.
Yeah, it's 2011, right?
It was literally less than 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, because I was very entrenched in the community at that point. It was a crazy story when it was happening, and it's still an amazing story. And I do hope he gets the police that did not protect him get the proper justice at some point. But unfortunately, it seems like that ship has sailed.